Hi, and welcome to another AOGP Outside of the Church podcast. This is the second installment of our look into Para-scientology part 2. Before we get started, though, please go to our website, ao-gp.org, and sign up for a free course. Get some free auditing. We offer 2 free hours of Dianetics Book 1 auditing to get you started if you've never gotten any auditing before. We also audit online remotely with Theta meter, and we have a full online course room that you can take advantage of and get started today. So here I am with Quentin Stroud, and we're excited to get started with part 2 of our Para-scientology series, starting with universes and the factors.
Yeah, let me tell you how excited I am about this, because now I'm speaking from my own viewpoint, right? My own perspective. But when we decided that, okay, we're talking about Para-scientology for the rest of October, and we want to make sure like we kind of hit on these specific things that I believe people experience them, but they don't always know exactly what this is or what's going on or whatever. So when we talk about pocket universes, when we talk about other dimensions, when we talk about these things, please understand that we're talking about it from a broader, general perspective. If you have your own experiences, please feel free to comment about them in the comments below. Please feel free to talk about them freely on the college, knowing that we've experienced these things in some way, shape, or form. We just might not be fully aware of them. So when we talk about the factors, I believe that the factors that LRH tendered back in April 23rd of 1953, I believe that the factors really are the creation story or the creation understanding of Scientology. What do you think?
Yeah, you see it a lot on Reddit, places like that, Quora, where they say that the OT3 story is the origin story of Scientology, and it's not. It's not, because what you're running into there is you're running into people who are thinking within the confines, and this is the important part, who are thinking in the confines of the physical universe. And it's important to note, I was thinking about this yesterday on the drive home, how when you have these physicists, these guys that are thinking about, or even science fiction authors, when you're thinking about other worlds and the universe at large, you have to stop thinking in terms of the physical universe. You have to stop thinking in the fact that life on another planet might not be bipedal. Maybe they don't have 2 legs. Maybe they have 6 legs. Maybe they don't have a body at all. Maybe, whatever. And you can't, this is why the factors are important, is because the factors don't take into consideration a body. When you read them, they don't take into consideration the body. That is an origin story worth mentioning to me.
Well, and what I like about LRH is that yeah, it absolutely is, because it has nothing to do with, if you're talking about the creation of, that means something outside of itself, outside of it had to create the something, right?
Yeah.
And so when we think about creation, the creation story of, let's say, other religions or Christianity or whatever, they factor this idea that this has been created, but this ain't all that is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This ain't all that is. Go ahead.
You would be selling yourself short if you were to just look at it from the viewpoint of a meat body. That's
Yeah.
And that's how people look at it. And they're like, well, it's the origin story, Adam and Eve, well, that's an origin story as well, in a body. This is different. This isn't saying you and a body did this, you and a body did this, or anything like this. The factors don't mention it at all. It just mentions life.
Right.
Well, life, it can take many forms. It doesn't have to be in a body. So we'll go over
Well,
this.
and that's Adam and Eve's origin story too. That's their origin story. What
Yeah,
about your origin story?
right.
Where did you pop on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and when did that occur for Adam and Eve? Well, that's far more recent history than this. So at least from
Yeah.
our viewpoint, it is. So let's take a look at them one by one and go over it, and then we can get into the bits about how all of this plays into parascientology. So, do you want to start?
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
this is the factors again in April of 1953, April 23rd, 1953. So we're going to start off with number one, and I'm just going to read through them as much as we can and we can discuss.
Mhm,
So, number one, before the beginning was a cause, and the entire purpose of the cause was the creation of effect. In the beginning and forever is the decision, and the decision is to be. I want to stop there.
mhm,
That this causative expression, this causative being, this causative self, this causative identity made a decision. Well, first of all, it had a purpose of creating an effect, and it made a decision, and that decision was for itself to be
mhm,
whatever it was being, whatever it chose to be, whatever however it chose to show up or express. It is now I decide and forever will be deciding to be self,
mhm. Doesn't say what universe.
to be. No.
So there's no bias,
So
no
good.
bias
This
there
is
at all.
parascientology, y'all.
Right. This is parascientology. So
This-
open your minds and your satanic eyes and widen your scope of view. Don't be looking through this through a meat body and everything like that, what you can see and what you can touch and all that stuff. There's a lot more here going on than meets the eye. Three.
yeah. The
You want
first action of beingness is to assume a viewpoint. The second action of beingness is to extend from the viewpoint points to view, which are dimension points. So after one decides to be, one assumes a viewpoint. Okay, I'm gonna look out. I'm gonna see what I can see. And I'm using again, how do you do this without looking at a meat body?
well,
Oh
right.
Lord, it's
Well,
so
that
weird.
yeah, that's the thing is this is sort of a study of, and this is the larger arc, and I need to make this point. This is parascientology, these particular points, because it doesn't just cover looking at it from the viewpoint of a messed viewpoint. We're talking about other universes here. This is the wide aperture view of this whole thing. It can be anything. Don't look at it from a meat
Yeah.
body. Look at it from, I'll give you an example. A Thetan can see 360 degrees in perspective. Think about that for a minute.
Hmm.
Okay. It's like looking out into the world in all directions at the same time. The only thing that limits you is your limitation and consideration that you're looking at things from a viewpoint of dimension that only covers at best probably 40. No, let's see 360. So you're looking at maybe 180 degrees, but the thing is there's more to it than 360 degrees because you're viewing everything, not just the physical
Hmm.
universe. It's perception. Perception doesn't have a direction. It doesn't have a vector. It's just no. That's what a Thetan does.
Right. So we're not talking about viewpoint in the sense of necessarily seeing something, right? So I stand corrected. So we're not talking about viewpoint in the sense of seeing. We're talking about viewpoint in the situation of perception.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Viewpoint of dimension. What dimension are you in? Well, if you're in the physical
Uh-huh.
universe, you're dealing with X, Y, and Z as dimensions. We're talking about X, Y, and Z and because a Thetan's perception covers a lot more. See, I'm even stumbling to describe it because It's something you have to experience and you just have to perceive, and you imbue yourself into something, and then you become that and you know it. Okay. And when I
Yeah.
say into something, I'm not talking about mess. This is really way out there. This is parascientology.
Well, the next point, number five, he actually goes into like, and I think by him using the word space, it gives us some awareness, right? So
Mhm,
it says the second action, number four, the second action of beingness is to extend from the viewpoint points to view, which are now dimension points. These are dimension points. So from the beingness, from the beingness, you extend the points to view,
mhm,
and these are dimension points. Now I got it. Okay, that's there. It's
mhm,
there. Whatever there is, right? However that's perceived. Number five says this: thus, there is space created because the definition of space is viewpoint of dimension.
mhm,
And the purpose of a dimension point is space and a point to view. So if viewpoint is here, and again, I'm using this body stuff, but if viewpoint is here,
mhm,
dimension point is there, wherever there is,
mhm,
there is space now created,
mhm,
right? A viewpoint of dimension. And because the purpose of a dimension point is space and a viewpoint. That's what
mhm,
dimension point gives.
mhm,
Boom, boom, boom.
mhm.
Okay.
Right. Now from an OT
So now we
perspective,
have space.
yeah, so you have space. Now from an OT viewpoint, not that you're not OT, but I'm just saying the royal OT viewpoint, like when you say, when you're talking to somebody and you say, you know what I mean, you're saying about how people would mean, not necessarily you, Quentin Stroud. This is what I'm saying.
Right. Right, of
From
course.
an OT viewpoint, we're all in the same room. The viewpoint
Hmm.
of dimension is not a matter of space, is it's a viewpoint of dimension of your viewpoint, my viewpoint as a Thetan.
Right.
And you can
And
you
those
can
are dimension points as
and
you,
those are the dimension points as Thetans. So you can reach
hmm.
somebody on the other side of the physical universe, and the only via the added consideration is that it's the other side of the universe, because you're dropping down into the physical universe when you really don't need to, because you can just pop up into the Theta universe. You can find them in session and handle something auditing wise, or you can communicate with somebody. I was explaining this to a PC the other day when we were going over the axioms for their auditing prior to auditing, so they understand how all these things work. But we, in so doing, I was explaining to him how there isn't any delay. And when you start thinking about, and this is another parascientology topic we're going to talk about, when you start thinking about talking to somebody telepathically,
Hmm.
what happens when you talk to somebody telepathically, and why you can't talk to somebody telepathically, is simply this. Listen up, folks. When I say think of a tree, what do you think of?
The tree that I think of,
What is that?
the tree
What
that
are
I
you,
think of.
what are you thinking? What if we were to say, okay, like we did with the cat and the stage and all that, one of their earlier podcasts, actually a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
tell me what it is you see when I say think of a tree.
I see the tree of my own making, how it looks to me, my own mock-up,
Right. It's messed.
right?
Okay. That's a via.
Right. Yeah. It had right.
Okay. And then beyond that, you have
Mhm.
TREE. Okay. And then that makes the word tree, which represents this green
That's a
thing.
symbol.
It's a symbol.
Right.
Okay. And you have
Right.
the significance of T and R and E, and the way they sound and what goes together to make those four words represent that symbol. So you've got a symbol on top of a symbol on top of a symbol, and it's messed. Now, wipe all that
Mm-hmm.
away. wipe all that away and get the concept of a
Mm-hmm.
tree without the vias of all of the symbology in the mest.
Mm-hmm.
Is that higher ARC than all of that
Yeah.
stuff in KRC? That,
Yes.
that's the concept of the tree. Now, you have to do that with everything. It's tricky because we've been running into this in the factors. It's tricky to do because you're so trained into via, mest, and you go, wah, 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 wah. Julie, get my thought.
Right.
Julie's not going to get your thought. Why? Because it's got all that solidity and all that mess in it.
Mm.
You have to pull yourself out of and draw. And see, I have to use directional terms just to describe this. You have to do this in the theta universe because it's just like a
Right.
postulate. It's just poof there
It
because there's
is. Yeah.
yeah because there's no solidity to it, and that's how the theta universe is, and that's how you can communicate to somebody with broadband speeds type of a thing and get it there. Is you stop thinking in terms of mest and symbols and start thinking in terms of conceptual understanding.
Okay, so let me tell you how weird this is that you say this, because when I have considered myself as working with telepathy, it's never been sentence, word,
Yeah, it's not like a
whatever. It's never
telex.
been that. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's always been more so a transfer of concept, a
Yeah.
transfer of, or a sharing. Maybe that's even a better word than transfer, because that even denotes space. But it's more like a sharing or an experience of. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I have worked with people all over the planet, and they'll get the experience of, or the awareness of, maybe that's a better word too, of what I'm getting across, and it'll immediately resonate,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll start crying, or they'll feel this elation. Oh my God, I knew I needed to talk to you. I knew I needed to, and it was exactly what they needed to get across, but it wasn't anything I verbally necessarily said.
Mm-hmm.
It was the beingness of what I was expressing. It's so weird to even talk
Right.
about it.
Right. That's and it's hard to express because in order to express it, you have to drop down back into symbology in order to
Right.
express it.
Oh, wow.
That's the whole thing behind the factors.
Welcome to Scientology.
Right. Right. And that's where it's so difficult to get across to people something that they've been that has been so ingrained in them that they have to communicate. I mean, these guys that come to the planet from other places and they come here and talk to people, they talk to them, and more often than not, most reports are they're talking to them telepathically. They aren't using vocal cords. They aren't using
Uh-huh.
air going over the vocal cords. They're just talking to them as a being, like
Right.
what we're describing, because it's much quicker and it's much more efficient. How do they fly their ships? You think they're using controls and things like that? Nope.
Yeah.
Too slow.
Well, it's interesting because Elon Musk is working on the Neuralink, and the way to like
Yeah,
control
and
your
that's
devices and stuff with the mind and stuff
that's
like that. Yeah.
that and I mean, they have we have this now. They have I forget how some ridiculous amount of money that the pilots have these headsets, these helmets that allow them to fly these planes without controls. Now,
Hmm.
right now, as we speak, our own government in the US has this capability. And this is just the stuff they're telling us about. They have
Right.
you can buy uh electronics and you can play a video game now. They have it on Newegg and lots of other places where you can play a video game without a joystick.
Mm.
This is low grade what we're talking about here. They're using it with the brain as a via. That's low grade. What
That's
we're
still right.
talking about,
That's
yeah, right. We're still talking dark ages here. but it is the point is that, well, we're getting there from, from an earth standpoint. An earth standpoint is low old tech type of a thing, but what we're talking about is much higher tech, where you're not using the body as a via at all to communicate to somebody. Para-scientology, you're trying to get things across to them. Anybody can do this. It's just a matter of
Mm-hmm.
practice. So anyway.
So that takes us to number 6, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
number 6 on the factors, it says the action of a dimension point is reaching and withdrawing, right? And from the viewpoint to the dimension point, number 7, from the viewpoint to the dimension points, there are connection and interchange. Thus, a new dimension points are made. Thus, there is communication. Okay, so you just talked about it, right? I get excited about this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you just talked about it. So you're not communicating like a conversation or a sentence. Call me Mary. Call me. Boop, 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 boop. Call me Mary. Like you're actually having an interchange and a connection of dimension points, right? From the viewpoint,
Mm-hmm.
and you're a viewpoint, I'm a viewpoint, and
Mm-hmm.
they as Thetans, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have our own dimension points. And if we want to connect or interchange those dimension points, we do it through communicating. It's a
Mm-hmm.
word, right? Through
Mm-hmm.
communicating, and thus new dimension points are made.
Mm-hmm.
We get like aha moment. That makes so much sense now. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I see it from your perspective. Da 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 da. Right? This is what communication does.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't this something?
Mm-hmm. An interesting point to be made in solo auditing sessions, when I'm introducing people to solo auditing, is they'll be working with the meter and everything like that. And we're getting towards the end of the solo 1 course and on the solo 2 course, and I'll be talking to them about when they're clearing commands as a solo auditor. Now, the interesting point about this is that, let's say you're reading the line, "Do birds fly?" What happens is, you're supposed to, auditing wise, you're supposed to look for a read when you're dealing with somebody else. You're supposed to look for a read right as soon as you say the line to the pre-clear. Okay, get that. You say the line to the pre-clear and you look for a read on the meter. Okay, so now we've got like
Mhm.
a couple of vias there already.
Already.
What happens is, with a solo auditor, when they're in session, the moment they read this, okay, before they before they ever, and it's hard to explain, before they ever get done reading it, you get a read before you say the line. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's already being connected. It's already being interchanged.
Yeah, you've got the conceptual understanding of it before you drop down into word, 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 instant read.
Right.
This is what we're talking about, is it's instantaneous. When I go look for somebody that I'm
Oh.
dealing with in a knots type session, it
Mhm.
isn't ring, 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 hello. There isn't any of that. It's just, and
I'm
it's
sorry.
it's the coolest thing in the world. Do you see? This is what we're
Yeah.
talking about, because there is no time, there is no space, there is no distance. So when you
Well,
get,
let's keep.
okay,
Go ahead.
go ahead. So you have to keep this in mind, that all of this waiting is physical universe. Theta universe, there is no cue, there is no line. It's just
Mm.
instantaneous conceptual understanding. So you got to watch for this stuff as a solo auditor, that you got the read before you ever dropped down and then went, "Do birds fly?" You just had it, and you need to pay attention to be looking at the meter when you're doing this as a solo auditor. Anyway.
So it's funny you said there is no cue, there is no line, because that's what I experienced when I went to Universal Studios.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't want to sit there and wait in line.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to like as is the line. Like I remember going on different rides and we would just and we was at the front.
Mm-hmm.
And we was that
Mm-hmm.
we was right there. Like there was no time necessarily put into it. It was such an interesting thing. But okay, so let's continue because I want to get
Okay.
this because
Yeah.
we just talked about communication,
Yep.
right? So thus there is communication because there's this connection and this interchange between viewpoints to dimension points and the whole bit, right? So now
Mm-hmm.
new dimension points are made, new ideas are created, new things are being made aware of, duplication. Blah, there's this thing. The next one says what that means. And thus there is light. Boom,
Mm-hmm.
boom, the idea, the light bulb, boom,
Mm-hmm.
right? And thus there is energy because and I'm being a little tongue in cheek about it, but really if you think about it, between two points, right? Positive and negative on a battery or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's
Two
this energy,
terminals.
there's electricity, two terminals, right? There's this energy there. So thus there's light, thus there's energy, and thus, because of communication,
Mm-hmm.
thus there is life.
Mm-hmm.
That these two this interchange is happening, this experience is happening, this sex is happening, this whatever. I'm going mess for a second, but you get my point, right?
Yeah.
there's this there's this interchange that takes place,
Mm-hmm.
and from that interchange there is experience of life, there's experience of beingness and livingness,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now
Mm-hmm.
there's activity of livingness, there's the whole cosmic interplay that takes place. Thus, there is life. This is such a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. It is. It is when you really get to understanding it and you look
Yeah.
at that two beings that can communicate with each other without having to use words or mess, and they can sit there and come to some agreement and create a universe. And we were talking about this
Yeah.
right before we pushed record, when we were talking about what happens. And if you could revisit it for our listeners, what happens when you fall in love?
Yes, it's almost as if, and many of you may have already experienced this, but it's almost as if, and you probably heard it said on movies or whatever, it's like the rest of the world falls away, and it's nobody there but me and you, like it's like time stands still, and all these like when you have this admiration, which we're going to talk about in a minute, when you have this theta quality
Mm-hmm.
thing with this other being, right? It's like the rest of the messed universe falls away. Times doesn't even affect you anymore. It's like this is so real for us.
Right.
Right? We have our own reality. We have our own shared reality, our own
Mm-hmm.
ARC that surpasses anything else that you might have had with another being that you're not in that state with.
Mm-hmm.
This is life.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
love this.
Yeah. And that is, it's the best example that you can give to people, to give them an analog to what it's like to create a universe. Because
Hmm.
when you, that particular instance with love, it allows you to communicate telepathically. We're both thinking the same thing. Oh, I was just, you're communicating telepathically, and
Finish
there's
other sentences.
right,
Right.
right, yeah. All of that stuff is, you've created your own little universe with that person, because, and it's easy to do, A, R, C, and U: affinity, reality, communication, and understanding. And K, R, C, and P: knowledge,
Mhm.
responsibility, control, and power. And that
Right.
is a separate universe where you're that, when how it is when you're with somebody and you're in love and all of that stuff. What happens to time? Like you said, just drops away, and you spend time together
Yeah,
and you're with each other for 24 hours, and it just seems like you just got there, and there is no
right.
other time,
We've been
because
talking
you
on the phone for 6 hours and didn't even realize, oh my God, it's been 6 hours?
right.
What?
That's a prime example of creating your own universe. And the thing is it's the simplest, it's the lowest impact type of a thing that everybody, it should experience at least once, if not many times, to get an
Hmm.
idea how simple it is. And you can see these types of things where somebody is being really creative with something. They have a super strong interest with it, it's a hobby or it's something they love, musicianship or whatever, time just falls away because they're creating their
Hmm.
own universe. And that ARC, that affinity, that admiration is so high. That's how you do this. This is how Thetans create separate universes from the physical universe. It happens all the time. There are squillions of them, just not
How
in the
many?
physical universe. Squillions. That's my own number, which is way beyond whatever. I got that from
Yes,
Jason Newsted from Metallica. Squillions. Uh,
squillions of them.
yeah. So it's one of those things that isn't hard. It obviously it isn't hard to create because if it was, nobody would fall in love. You wouldn't have
Right.
that window, so to speak.
But I will say this, and this, speaking of love, because I have one of my celebrity clients is like one of the biggest, like a big dating um dating platform owner and all that stuff like this. And we talk a lot about love and we talk a lot about that whole thing. And it's interesting you say it's the easiest thing to create. And I think we've made love, relationship, the second dynamic so messed base,
Mm-hmm.
messed focus
Mm-hmm.
that it it appears and it seems hard to create that universe, to
Mm-hmm.
create that shared universe that we have, because it's like, well, what do you bring to the table? Well, what do you bring to the table? Well, I'm making six figures. Well, I got some bomb, da da da. Like I'm beautiful. I'm this, that, the other. It's like it's so much mess thrown on the in
Yeah,
the
all those
mix.
vias. That's right.
God, this is why it's so hard to fall in love for some people.
Yeah.
It's like it's so hard because we throw so much on into the line that,
Mm-hmm.
like, what do you say? What Ellery says, when you put matter, energy, space, and time into your postulate, you destroy the postulate to the degree that you do this.
That's right.
And so you want love, but you put all this and
Mm-hmm.
it destroys
Right.
the postulate. Wow.
Yeah, because they're arbitraries and they're vias, and you're doing the same thing that you find yourself in the midst of. Is you have all of these vias that you're dealing with the composite case and a composite being that disallow you the ability to postulate, perceive, know, all of that, intend.
Hmm.
Well, you're creating your own universe and you're dumbing it down immediately with these arbitraries. Where what I mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be hokey. What did John Lennon say? All you need is love. Love is
Yeah.
all you need. That is admiration and affinity, reality, communication, and understanding. And when you keep it that simple, it
Hmm.
is enduring beyond anything in this universe.
Wow. That let me ask you a question, since we're talking about
Yep.
parascientology.
Yep.
Is love parascientology?
I would have to say
Is
that it
love
is.
is love a quantifiable knowingness, or is it something that you can't quite put your finger on? We can't quite measure it. We can't quite know what it is, but we know it's there. But
Well,
love is parascientology.
yeah, well, it's interesting that you mentioned that because we have the axiom of you're trying to occupy the same space. Okay, now we know that you can't do that in the physical universe. But when you occupy the same space as another being in the theta universe, you have complete duplication. When you have complete
Hmm.
duplication, and this is the funny thing is maybe, just maybe, love isn't just second dynamic.
Of
Maybe
course it's not.
maybe love is just complete no. That is serenity of beingness. Because when you completely know something and you
Yeah.
have that kind of thing going on, and this enters into other areas, I always go to professionalism myself, where you see a professional who makes something crazy hard look so easy. That
Hmm.
is complete no. And I think people get love mixed up with admiration and affinity,
Hmm.
when
Absolutely.
really they're kind of just all one the same phenomena, and that is parascientology. Because when a Thetan really knows something.
Mm-hmm.
It's and again, I'm going to use a non-Scientology's term. It's Zen-like.
Yeah.
Just boom.
Yeah.
They're Theta the solver 199%, and they are Theta the solver or whatever, and they just walk into a room and everything melts away.
Right.
Everybody's disagreements. We've all heard these stories, and some of us have experienced them. Somebody just walks in the room, so much so that their affinity, their admiration, their love is so high, all the bullshit just melts away.
Yeah.
And there have been
That's
lots of,
beautiful.
yeah, there have been lots of figures in history that can do this, and you and I and all of our listeners can do this too, because it's a matter of what we've been talking about here, and that is dropping
Mm-hmm.
out of the physical universe vias and the arbitraries, and just, and gets back to be, do, have too. Sorry folks,
Being,
but
yeah.
there it is. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so that brings us to what, 11.
Well, I was number 11, yeah. Because um no, wait, is it number 11? Yeah. So after we have life, right? And life
Mhm.
is lifing, right?
Mhm.
Life is lifing. It says number 11, but there are other viewpoints, and these viewpoints outthrust points to view. And there comes about an interchange amongst viewpoints, but the interchange is never otherwise than in terms of exchanging dimension points. So all these viewpoints, all these statements, all these viewpoints are outthrusting other points of view,
Mhm.
and there's this interchange amongst these viewpoints, right? And these interchanges happening, but the interchange is nothing but an exchange of dimension points. See my perspective, see my view, see my view, see my point of view. What about this? What about that? What about, do you like this? Do you like this color? Do I look fat in this dress? Whatever, like all these viewpoints, right?
Yeah.
And all of these things are being interchanged, and that's simply it. Number 12 then goes on to say is that the dimension point can be moved by the viewpoint. For the viewpoint, in addition to creative ability and consideration, possesses volition and potential independence of action.
Mhm.
And the viewpoint, viewing dimension points, can change in relation to its own or other dimension points or viewpoints. Thus comes about all the fundamentals there are to motion. So now we have these dimension points being moved around, right? These
Mhm.
considerations, these creations, these cars, these trucks, these, I keep dropping into symbology, but I ask you to do it.
It's hard. It's really hard not to.
Right. Well, I think it's something, I think it's notable to note that this is not something that's out of this world wonky all the time. It
Mhm.
is happening right in front of you.
Yeah.
This is
It's
this is
always
this is
there.
motion. This is space, motion, movement, life, exchanges, all these communication. All of these things are happening right in front of you. And the reason why I love Scientology is because once you get it, it makes life seem so like, oh, that's what's going on. This,
Mhm.
I'm looking at a plant right here in my office, and the plant right now inside of it has movement happening, motion,
Mhm.
cells and
Mm.
molecules and atoms and all
Yeah, there's a
firing
lot
motion
going
just
on
happening.
there. Right.
It's a lot going on. And this piece of wood sitting at my desk. So we have all the fundamentals of motion now because we have these dimension points that are being moved around by this viewpoint that has its own volition and its own independence of action, its own free will, if you will,
Mhm.
self-determinism, and it's moving around these dimension points. Anything you want to say on that?
Nope. Go right ahead.
Okay. Number 13. The dimension points are each and every one, whether large or small, solid. And they are solid solely because the viewpoints say they're solid. Now we have mist. Now we have matter, right?
Mhm.
It goes on to say many dimension points. Many dimension points combine into larger gases, fluids, or solids. Thus, there is matter. But the most valued point is admiration. Hear me. The
Mm-hmm.
most valued point is admiration. And admiration is so strong, its absence alone permits persistence. When I cleared this, it blew my mind
Mm-hmm.
because you walk around here with your physical meat body, looking all cute, getting your hair done and your nails did, and and you got it going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But but get this, it says, but the most valued point is admiration. This is what we're really wanting, right? This is what we're really desiring. We want to be desired. We want to be admired. We want to be seen, right? We want to be regarded, positively or whatever. So the most valuable point is admiration, and admiration is so strong, its absence alone permits persistence. That when you don't have that, there's almost like I don't know how to say it. There's almost like a fixation on
Mm-hmm.
it. There's
Mm-hmm.
almost like this I have to get noticed. I have to get seen. I have to get regarded. And people have, unalived themselves because they
Mm-hmm.
never felt heard, or they never felt seen, or they never felt beautiful, or whatever
Right.
the case may be. It's a real thing.
Yeah. Well, and that goes back to what a Thetan likes to do best: create effects.
Mhm.
Why do they want to create effects? Admiration.
Yeah, admiration. My spiritual teacher used to say, if as a god, little g, as a god, you don't sit there and have conversations about, menial things and money and da da da. He said, you want to see who can create the most beautiful sunrise, who can create the most beautiful, most
Mm-hmm.
beautiful flow of energy, who can create the most beautiful starburst that sweeps across the universe, whose comet can fly the furthest when you throw it out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're having a cosmic experience versus this little, oh, look at my filter on Snapchat. you
Right.
know
Well, we did the thing with the tree. Like to ask our listeners, get get the idea of admiration. Now, everybody's going to come up with, and this is the point we were talking about earlier. Pretty much everybody got a picture of some physical universe thing or things inflowing something to them.
I did.
See?
That's exactly what I did.
Now that right. Now let's raise that up. Okay.
Yeah.
No symbols, no matter, energy, space, or time. Get the idea of admiration, not the physical inflow. Get the idea of admiration. I'm not saying which flow, just picture it, meaning perceive it, don't see it.
Mm.
And how is that different?
Hmm.
It's way
It,
different.
yeah, it feels almost ubiquitous. It
Mm-hmm.
feels larger than life. It feels outside of the scope of what many of us probably have ever experienced, right?
Well, it's transcendent in the
Um,
physical universe, without a doubt.
hmm
Without a doubt.
hmm
And that's the important part, is the universal solvent. But key datum here is that attention is second only to admiration. Think about that.
So let me just say this. This is what comes to mind since we're talking about parascientology. If you remember the movie Peter Pan,
Mm-hmm.
and remember Tinkerbell almost died. Remember? Tinkerbell almost died, and they had to clap. They said
Yeah,
to save Tinkerbell, you have
that's
to
right.
clap. And,
Mm-hmm.
and clap. Okay, come on, everybody, clap, 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 clap. And admiration is that applause, that acclaim, that approval, that inspiration, that feeling. It's not just like you said. It's not this inflow or whatever, or even an outflow to, oh, I admire this person. It's more of it's a theta quality. It's
Mm-hmm.
ubiquitous. It's everything.
Mm-hmm.
You have everything, and I'm going back to again the physical stuff, but you have everything in your house, everything that you decide to purchase, everything you decide to acquire. You did it because there was some level of admiration
Mm-hmm.
that existed there.
Yeah, I love those elephant bookends.
Oh my
I
God,
really
it's so
admire
amazing.
those
Yeah.
elephant bookends. I admire it. You put stuff
Yeah.
around you that you admire. But we're talking about, in a parascientology
Hmm.
type of viewpoint, that admiration is where all of this starts and stops. And what you put your attention on is to universes, magic, the magic universe way back on the backtrack and all
Yes.
of this stuff all had to do with admiration and
Hmm.
any of the things, and, pretty much anything anybody can think of in the mass
Right.
universe has existed on the time track because somebody put it there as admiration and attention.
Right.
So it all
Right.
starts there. Yeah. So,
I think this is a good place to stop, and then let's pick this back up in part three,
yeah.
because I believe that the factors are very much so, as parascientology goes, very much so worth unpacking a lot more. And we're
Hmm.
about halfway through, so we got a little bit more to go. But I think that this is a really good place. It is I admire you. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I feel admiration to you.
Hmm. Yep. And this is where all of parascientology starts, is that
Yeah.
type of a thing. So we'll get into that in part 3 of our parascientology series. Again, ao-gp.org. Leave us a message in the little box at the bottom right. Talk to us about auditing training. Have questions. Want to be part of our private social platform. Share and like this podcast. Catch it on YouTube on my page, Jonathan Burke, AOGP, and you'll find all of the podcasts on YouTube as well, Spotify, Apple podcasts, and a litany of other podcast platforms. And we can help you out and get you a lot more data. So for Quentin Stroud and myself, we'll see you in the next podcast. Namaste, and we love you.
Admiration.